So today I'm going to be responding to Revival Fitness calling Joffrey Schofield a fake natty because his bench press is too low. And I'm going to try to keep it short because it's taking time away from other projects, but I do think it's important to address because Revival's using a correct principle incorrectly because he lacks experience, so I think it's important that I comment on that. Before I do that, remember to like, subscribe, do the bell thing, all the other stuff you have to do if you want to see somebody's YouTube videos, if you want to see more of this. I'm going to give you a quick mogging video of Revival to put him in his place, and then we'll get into it. Okay, so that was fun. That's an old video that I made a while back. I think his deadlift PR is a little bit higher, but still nothing to write home about, and his physique looks pretty mid at this point, so I think we can say that he's been mogged. Frankly, I don't know why anyone listens to this guy. I guess it's like relatability. Maybe if you're a young person, you don't want to listen to someone too much older than you, but in some cases, age and wisdom can actually be correlated, and it might be better to listen to an older, more advanced lifter instead of just some intermediate that's closer to your age range, youth culture, right? Anyway, so the principle that Revival is accusing Joffrey of being a fake natty based on is that naturals are going to tend to be strong for their size, and generally when you see somebody who has massively inflated muscles relative to their actual strength, that's a good sign of performance enhancing drugs. And this is a correct principle. The kid knows something. I mean, he's not wrong. He knows the fact, but knowing a fact and having the understanding and context to apply it appropriately, that's kind of the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and that's why generally someone with more experience is going to be able to give you better information than somebody who does not have experience and just has the fact itself. So let's get into it. Is this true that strength is generally correlated with size and naturals, and that when you see a really big disparity in size and strength with more muscle than apparent strength, that's a good indicator of being on drugs? Yes. I mean, when you look at the extreme end of modern pro bodybuilders, especially the open division guys, I mean, these guys obviously have vastly more size than they do strength. This is because steroids are more effective at increasing muscular tissue size than any kind of connective tissue or anything like that. So while there is a lot of strength there, you really can't use it effectively without extreme risk of various injuries. And not only that, they're not practicing the skill of strength, so their actual numbers are generally going to be fairly underwhelming relative to their size. And you see it at smaller scales. Like one of the reasons, among many, including his skin color, that I was absolutely certain that Liver King was not natural before it came out was that he was just so weak. I mean, nobody's going to have an inflated chest like that without being able to bench 405 naturally. It's just not going to happen. I mean, if you look at any natural lifter from the Silver era, anyone that I believe today who has a massive chest, they all have a very big proportionate bench press. So you look at someone like Liver King, who's extremely inflated in certain areas and just not showing the performance to match. That is suspicious. So 100% I agree on the principle. You're not going to see a natural guy with a very, very well developed body part who does not have the strength to match. 100%. Okay, so here's why Revival Fitness is screwing it up. Here's how he's screwing it up. Okay, so here's how Revival, in his lack of experience, is screwing this up. Okay, he's looking at Joffrey's numbers on the big three, especially the bench press, and coming to some conclusions based on that. Joffrey's bench press is very low. He can't even bench press 315. How can somebody be massive and not be able to bench 315 naturally? It doesn't happen, right? Well, no, for a couple of reasons. First of all, you have to understand with these noble natties, throughout a significant subset of them, like having a low bench press is actually like a hipster flex. So they intentionally try to keep their bench press low and kind of brag about it. It's kind of a three-way competition between natural hypertrophy, Joffrey, and then basement bodybuilding to see who can have the weakest bench press. When a natural bodybuilder tells you that you bench more than he does, he's not being humble and complimenting you. he's telling you that you're a moron because, you know, these guys are like, oh, well, I'm so smart. I keep my bench press. I don't try to bench press a lot because that wouldn't be good for hypertrophy. You know, it's an in-group status signal thing, right? So there's that. I think Joffrey's a bit of a contrarian, so he just likes having a low bench press to piss people off. But the other factor you have to consider is, like, has anybody ever called Joffrey a fake natty because of his chest? Not really. I mean, I'm not trying to bash the guy. I ask him for advice on all sorts of things where it's relevant. I think he's, an outstanding lifter, very well developed and incredible physique. But I mean, like, chest is not a standout body part. If you were just looking at his chest and not his massive arms, nobody would be calling him a fake natty. So it's not really a standout body part, so you wouldn't necessarily expect him to bench that much. Now, I don't know why his massive triceps can't just, power up 315 anyway, even if his chest sucks. But no, I'm not saying he does, but it's not something that you would accuse him of based on, right? But I also think there is just, like, he's kind of contrarian. He doesn't want to bench 315. I guarantee you, if you told him he couldn't splice random movie clips into videos ever again, if he didn't bench 315, he'd do it the next day. Anyway, so you've got to look at specificity, right? Bench press doesn't target a muscle where he's particularly strong. I imagine if he did get his bench press up to 315, his chest would look bigger, right? Squat. Now you got to look at the way he does squats. Like, his technique is very different from what most people do. Not only is it not the powerlifting style squat, it's not even like an Olympic lifter's squat that's ass to grass, but at least kind of performance oriented. He's keeping his knees straight out in front. That's a whole different animal. Like, my squat would be pretty low if I was doing it like that too. Very few people are going to squat big numbers doing it that way. It's a whole different animal, not comparable. Now, I don't know what he could do in a powerlifting style, but who cares, right? So that you can't even compare that. And as far as deadlift, yes, deadlift is trash, but he's had back injuries. He needs to get that squared away. And I guarantee you, when he does get that completely squared away, firing on all cylinders, he's going to put on pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of back thickness, solid mass. Like, you think he looks crazy now. Just wait till he gets his back fixed so that his deadlift is working correctly. And it's not going to be the deadlift that builds it up, but just having a functional back that actually works. You're going to see some interesting things. Anyway, so yeah, none of those lifts are really showcasing the guy's strength. I mean, no one's looking at his low back like, what? This guy's a fake natty. He's got the biggest low back. The only thing he's got, really, from those big three lifts that's really stand out is quads. And obviously he's doing his squats in a very different way anyway, so that doesn't really count. Now, when you look at some of the things that he does stand out at, like arms, well, his arm isolations are massive. My reputation is probably built way more on strength than on physique, but when I try to compete with him on some of the arm isolations, he absolutely wipes the floor with me in terms of strength. Like, I've seen him doing incline curls with 60-pound dumbbells. And that, it's strength. It's arms, but it's strength. I mean, you're just sitting there, arm locked in place. What are you going to use except your bicep? There's no technique. There's no, no way to cheat it up. If you don't have the strength, you're not going to be able to get 60-pound dumbbells up. He's doing incline curls with 60s. I mean, I think it's like a 1 rep max. I could do like maybe 40, 45. Nothing above that is going to come up. So, he has massive numbers on these arm isolations. They're, as far as what he is, exceptional at, he has the exceptional strength to match, and that's what you have to look at when you're trying to make these determinations. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, strength is not defined by the big three. There are any number of different strength tests, some of which the big three, correlate very well with, some of which they don't, Let's say you're dealing with an odd object that isn't that heavy, but it's just super awkward. In a lot of cases, the strength of your arms may be what's securing an object that's not too heavy for you to lift, but, it's just really awkward. It may be the strength of your arms that you need to be able to lift that object, or maybe you're in a situation where you can't use the rest of your body and all you have is your arms. Maybe you just have to use a lot of control with your arms to keep something stabilized. You get the point. There's any number of ways strength can be used, and the arm muscles are every bit as functional as any other muscles. In fact, in many cases more, because they're generally what links any object that you're lifting to the stronger muscles you're going to use to move it. that's what you're, connecting up your strength with. So it's going to be pretty important that your arms are very strong, because you don't have a convenient barbell to grip on with a lot of objects. You have to use the strength of your arms to make it work, right? So just defining strength as big three, it's kind of a rookie move. So it's not surprising that an intermediate like Revival, who has no particular strength to speak of and no life experience and no particular physique to speak of, would make that mistake, right? While we're on the topic of Revival, this brings up another interesting point that I think is often missed in these natty or not videos. When you think about it, what are we trying to do when we try to determine if someone's natty or not? Bottom line, we're trying to see if they're lying to us, because if we're doing a natty or not, presumably they claim natty at some point and we're not sure if they are. Well, we're trying to see if this person lies, so rather than any physical indicator, we're looking at character. Like, what kind of a person is this? So, I think character should be the first thing that we look at when trying to determine if this person has lied or not. You have someone with obvious character deficiencies, you can easily say, okay, I bet this guy's lying. Why even look into all the physical details, Like, for example, Athlete X, right? We find he's using fake weights. Why are we going to give him the benefit of the doubt on steroids? Obviously he's on steroids. If he'd lie about fake weights, why wouldn't he lie about drugs, right? But you get into someone like a lot of the noble natties, and you see a little bit of a different picture, especially with guys like Joffrey. You see, I think the best way to look at this is like, how are they making money? Are they selling out at every opportunity? Are they, pushing every supplement? Are they pushing that Scottish company that sells you patches of land to get to be a lord or whatever? Are they pushing every single thing that comes their way? No. Like Joffrey, the only endorsement he's taken is Boost Camp, that that workout app that that's my understanding is he uses it for a while. He didn't have YouTube monetization on. He's been very selective at what he uses to monetize, and I think that's an indicator that he probably has principle in other areas, right? You see the same thing with a lot of noble natties. Natural Hypertrophy had his big thing about, I want to make money off this, but I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I don't think this is principled. Like, that's generally going to be correlated with someone who might have principle in other things. It's not one-to-one, it's not perfect, but if you can see that this person is leaving lots of money on the table they could be taking advantage of, and it's definitely the case in Joffrey's case, there's a lot more money he could be getting out of the fitness industry than he is. It's a good indicator that he might have some principle elsewhere. It's not 100%, but it's something worth looking at, right? And I think Revival may be kind of blinded to this, because it looks like he's basically just snapped up every single opportunity that comes to him. Anything that he can endorse, any product, give me the money. That seems like his mindset. So I don't think he's looking at it in that way. And I think a lot of people aren't, because a lot of people making these are just making cash grabs. But I think what you see with most of the noble natties is they are actually a lot more selective in how they make money. I know personally, I'm starting to try to make some money off this, and I'm very selective at what I do. I have people supplement companies trying to get me to advertise various things that I've never used, like I'm not going to use, I'm not going to promote. It's something that noble natties seem to have, a lot more selectiveness about what they are making money off of, and that's skin in the game. You see somebody who is, you can see they're not taking advantage of all the opportunities to monetize it. Who knows? You could have somebody that, for example, just cares about one thing, doesn't care about the other. That's fine. Nothing is 100% certain, but I think that's a good bit of evidence that a lot of people are not taking into account. So I think that's a big thing as well. And along with that, kind of the community-oriented type thing, like somebody who's not out there just to put themselves up on a pedestal to sell something, but somebody who's actually engaging with other people, looking to learn from other people. What you typically see with the fake natties is they kind of want to be at the top of their own pyramid, with a bunch of followers underneath. They don't tend to care about peers as much unless it's like going to collab with somebody even bigger to get clout. They don't come out with the attitude. They don't seem to be that interested in connecting with peers, learning from them. Like collecting data, like, hey, what worked for you, what worked for me, like sharing and collectively learning, right? So when you see some, like, that's the behavior of somebody who is trying to get better naturally. Like, they're looking at other people as sources of information too, trying to learn from one another, and share their knowledge, but also also learn from other people, because that's how we get better. If you have a chemical shortcut, you're not really worried about learning. You don't need to learn. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to engage with anyone. You already have everything you need right there, in the comfort of your own home. Why interact with anyone? So that, and you do see some of these lone wolf types that just don't have any time or interest in anyone other than, I guess they're fans that they're going to make money off of. And that, to me, is a red flag. So, when you're seeing someone who's very community oriented, that kind of indicates that you're dealing with somebody who, does see a value in a community, which is something that would be more of a thing for a natural lifter than for someone who already has all their hypertrophy taken care of. So in conclusion, character counts, but most importantly, I just wanted to make this about using the correct principles, but also understanding them. I think it's good that the idea that naturals should have high degrees of strength, that they have impressive musculature, should be out there. Because for a long time, people were thinking if somebody's really strong, that means they're on steroids. And in a lot of cases, it might mean the opposite. When somebody looks really big, but then they have strength that matches, that's actually an indicator that they might be natural in many cases. Not to a certain point. You're probably not going to see any naturals conventional deadlifting 1,000 pounds, most likely. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but in most cases, that's probably not going to happen. But up to a certain point, I think, greater strength actually makes someone more believable as a natural. But you have to understand, the whole picture, and that's something that comes with experience, not just benching 315 for the first time and thinking that you're an expert who should be telling Zoomers things. So, with Revival, I really think you should sit down, sit back, stop trying to be an expert, learn, grow, become advanced, let experience give him some wisdom, and maybe come back in 5 years if he still wants to do this thing and try to do the thing then. But to be honest, I think with how black-pilled he is, he's going to be on steroids in 5 years. He's not going to stick it out. I mean, I'd like to be proven wrong, but I don't think he's going to stick it out. I think he's going to keep going for a little bit more, get black-pilled, and go on the sauce. I think he's in a lot of his other videos, he's already kind of laying the groundwork for it. So that's what I anticipate. And I think that attitude also went into why he's calling out Joffrey, but he just does not know what he's talking about here, and is, as a more experienced lifter who values both strength and hypertrophy, and kind of has the nuance to be able to contextualize this, I thought I should kind of weigh in here. So that's it. Thanks for watching. And once again, if you want me to put more attention on YouTube, I'm not trying to blackmail you, but I only have so much time and attention. If you want me to do more things like this, please hit the subscribe button and the little notification thing and do all the algorithm stuff. I'd really appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys.